Gentlemen, how are we doing? Hold on a minute. Is this thing on? Just gotta check my levels. Oh no, it looks... Yep, video's coming. Patching it through. Hold on, I'm just opening Photoshop. Just gotta get some documents open. I got some... Been working on it. Raymond's been cooking a little. He's been in the kitchen cooking a little. If you know it, if you catch my meaning. Alright, that's the one. It's a surprise. No, it's not that cool, but it's something. It's progress. And I want to open one more document. Hello, Jadis. I like the British pronunciation, saying hello with a silent H. My favorite greeting. I just want to open Premiere. Okay, that's... Oh no, I gotta open this other thing now. I want to open this one. Yes. It's Roy, that's right. I like how we've just... I've got a new name now. I like how I'm just Roy Mand. Yeah, that's me. Alright. How do I get... Okay, no, I want to minimize this, I want to minimize that, and I want to click... Hello! Okay, now we're cooking, now we're in business. Good morning, evening, night, or midnight if you're crazy and you're watching this in the middle of the night past your bedtime. Welcome to another Project Feline show and tell. What has Raymond been cooking this week? Dev stream / Q&A. I gotta come up with better titles for these. But this is where we talk about... I'm trying to do like a TV style intro. On this episode, we'll talk about graphic design from the 1990s and 3D modeling from the 2010s. I don't know why I'm naming the decades for all these crafts. But I think last stream I was showing you guys these menu concepts. And I said I wanted to take these and turn them into a theme. Oh, hold on a sec. I gotta adjust my volume. There we go. I said I wanted to turn these into a theme for the website. And I've been trying to do that. So I've got some... I haven't got any color yet, so it doesn't look as pretty as the menu ones. But I'm just focusing on broad shapes and everything. And I made 2 mock-ups. And then I got kind of stuck, because I didn't really feel strongly about either of them, but... I don't know. Like, so this is what I was able to do, at least, with trying to turn this into a web page, where we've got the main contents, like there, and then the aside. That's the semantic HTML tag name for the side column. It's called an aside. This is called main, and all of this is in an element called body, and then this little bit up here is header, and then the footer would be down here somewhere with like some legal links or something. And I had 2 versions of this I tried making, where I had a version with like a stripe banner at the top, kind of like the one in the menu. And then I tried another one where I had it all, the stripe going around the main. I was trying to do those sort of Star Trek style lines with the curved corners. And now it looks super pixelated, and that is on purpose. I have done it at like super low res. Because the website thing is 960 pixels. The real website will be 960 pixels wide. So I've designed it using the 960 grid system, which is based on Joseph Euler Brockman's grid system, but, you know, refreshed for website design. And that, I don't know when, there's some, I don't know who came up with it or when, but if you guys want to learn more about that, I think if you type in 960 grid on Google, you'll see this. This is the system. And you can even see the website itself. It looks like a very 2010s website with the skeuomorphic material gradient logos and the big old download button. I don't know what's in the download. I think it's just a bunch of CSS classes that automatically turn themselves into columns, but I'm just doing it all manually, so I haven't downloaded it. But it shows you how a bunch of web designs from the 2010s, when it started to become more standardized, how a lot of these conform to grids of either 12 or 16 columns with 20 pixel padding between each one. And it's pretty cool. Like, the thing is, I think now, like, this is the sort of web design I think is a good middle ground, because there's a lot of the old school nostalgic stuff, like the old Pepsi World website. I think you guys have told me about this one. Like the old school, how do I want images, like this sort of stuff. There's the old school stuff like this, but the thing I'm trying to keep in mind is that there was a reason why this, actually this is kind of decent. I like this one, but there was a reason why people stopped doing this. And I think there's a certain, I might have said this before, but there's a certain like goal I think that ought to exist. You can start to see the newer, as we go through history, the Pepsi World website starts to adopt more of the 960 grid system. But in the old 90s version, the reason this didn't last is it was novel and cool, but when it stops being novel and cool, what's left? And I guess whatever was left over, but beyond the novelty and coolness, wasn't, I don't know, it was like wasn't doing its job or whatever. And you know, it's a pretty busy, like the background is a bit distracting. Like if we were to criticize this without the nostalgia glasses for a minute, it is a kind of a bit, like it's cool and angular, the shapes are nice, but the colors are a bit all over the place. The logo's hard to read. The white glow on the text here is a bit much. And the red on blue, that is really hard to read with the drop shadow and everything. It's nostalgic now, and at the time it was new, but if you take away those emotions and just judge it on its merits, it's like it's okay, but it's not, there's issues with it, objective issues with it. So which is why, and when we go forward in time, you can see they start to sand it off a bit. I think now it's got a bit too far though. If we look at the new, whatever the Pepsi website is now, it's probably just boring. Yeah, it's just boring. So they've got a bit over-optimized, and a lot of websites I think do this now, where it's over-optimized and too much. But I think around the 2010s or the late 2000s, early 2010s, that's because, you know, that's kind of when I started using the internet, and that's sort of what I am fond of most personally. But I think objectively, if I pretend I was a 90s kid, or if I pretend I'm a Gen Alpha, I think I would still, for objective reasons, like the late 2000s, early 2010s, because it's sort of a good in-between between like the too artistic and the too utilitarian. We sort of had a middle ground here. And you'll notice that a lot of the examples on the 960 website are all from that, you know, early 2010s. And you can kind of tell because they use this sort of gradient, the iOS gradient theming for everything. And you got an iPhone 4 here in this one. So I don't know, this was my personal, I think is a good middle ground between what aesthetically I want and what objectively looks good. Because, you know, you can go in extreme, but, you know, I think it undermines the website if you go in either extreme, whether it's too stylish or too utilitarian. So with my one that I've been trying to do, it's just, I've tried to kind of do a bit in the middle. I've got a 960 grid overlaid on this. And I don't know if I've shown you guys the one I had already designed. That is the current version. I don't know if I can just open it real quick. Websites. It's in my websites folder. Gonna open Visual Studio. I need to open the terminal, and I gotta run this command to run the website, and then I gotta open a local host. So like this was the design I had previously done. And it's on the 960 system, but the styling it's like I'm 80% happy with for the default theme. But of course I want to have, for the feline areas, like this post would be a feline topic. It's about Project Feline. And I want all the pages about Project Feline to have a theme that matches Project Feline. So I'm trying to do something that kind of takes some of what I was doing here and, you know, turns it into a web page. But like I said, I was getting a little stuck and just uninspired. And I had a bunch of reference that I had found. I'll quickly open that because I've collected so much reference now of of styling. But I think it's one thing to have reference, but another to understand the reference. And I've been doing a bit of study on that lately. So I'll open up I have a huge board I've made. It's in my reference folder. I've used this program called PureRef. I have all these images saved. And here's the program. So it's just like an overlay window. Oh, come on. So it's like just a window that overlays over everything. And I've just put the best images that I've been able to find and just, you can automatically lay them out, I think, and automatically size them. So I just have them all laid out here. And you'll notice that all the images and stuff I've picked they all have these things that they're all doing. What I found really amusing is even Sporticus's costume, which is similar to Gabby's costume, does the same thing as some of this UI in terms of its shapes and colors. So I found that quite interesting because I'm starting to notice it now. If you go and look at like Kirby Air Ride with like the rounded corners and like the diagonal lines, or like this menu, I think this is from some Japanese arcade game. I can't remember the name. It's escaping me at the moment. And then you look at sort of the line width on the Smash Bros. Melee and Kirby Air Ride, where you've got like the thick outer lines, the thin inner, like the variable line width. And then you look at the backgrounds on Lazy Town with the backgrounds and even Sporticus's costume. You start to, I don't know what it is about it, but it feels like it was all designed by like the same person almost. Even like the little airship here with the way the stripes, it's got the variable width of the stripes and the same sorts of colors. And like, there's something about all of these pictures. And I've tried to look at, you know, all sorts of things. Like this is some kind of toy catalog from Bakugan. And I've just been looking at the product, the packaging for their stuff. I'm looking at the box cover. I think this was Time Crisis 4. This is a little more angular, but it has some same things it's doing, like these lines. And, you know, Melee does this. This was the Bakugan website and just the materials and colors I liked. And then there was the Scooby-Doo picture, which has these sort of athletic. That's the word I want to use for these sorts of lines that I like, is that they feel athletic. And you can see the lines here, and you can see them here on, I think it's Ace Combat 3, this menu's from. And you can sort of see on Lazy Town as well, and on this random website I found. It's sort of, they're all doing similar things if you sort of look closely at it. And you could imagine, like even looking at this MTV ad and then looking at Sporticus's shirt, like these are different things. These are different things. One of this is an ad, one of them is a shirt. But it feels like, how does it feel like it's designed by the same person or belongs in the same image? That's the thing that is so fascinating to me. So I've been trying to learn more about thinking, about what thinking leads to these sorts of designs getting made for not just menus, but t-shirts, costumes, like the technology, you know, dashboards, phones, Tamagotchi stuff. Like I found this picture as well of like I don't even know. I think this is just some made up gadget to promote a font. I found this on someone's Behance page, and they've housed the font in this huge border with these colors, and this is the sort of stuff I want to do, right? And I'm looking at all my references, and they're all doing this as well with like the silver and blue and the sort of the shapes, the angles. And I'm like, man, there is something going on with how they're thinking about this that is leading to them making stuff like this. And I want to know what this is. This is awesome. So, you know, I've been trying to just, you know, imitate it and like do it kind of off pure intuition. But I know that there's got to be something more to this. There's got to be more to it. So in my downtime, I've been reading this. I found, because one of you suggested to look up this design studio called the Designers Republic. And I've been looking at that. Some of you might have seen this before. Republic. Oh, they got a website. I've actually not looked at their current website, funny enough. But I've been reading a lot of old interviews from them. Okay. I don't know who any of these are. But I want to look at their old stuff. See, if you look at... Yeah, so they did all the design. They were contracted to do the design for the Wipeout games, which were really stylish. They were also contracted to do some of the games I had shown in my reference board there. I think it was like Ace Combat 3, I think was... Because I don't know, it looks to me like the same design house. And they did lots of... They started out doing CD covers. That's sort of where they became popular. So if you search like Designers Republic, like sleeves, I think that's what they call them. They were very, very well known during like the 90s for doing sleeves for like electronic music from the 90s. And they were based in the UK somewhere, I think. And it's really good stuff. Like it's aged very well, and it's stylish and feels modern and new. Oh, hold on a minute. I've seen this before. Oh, they did Kraftwerk's album design? Hold on a minute. Because I know this album. Do you guys know this? You guys know Kraftwerk? My dad loves this song. And he showed it to me a while back. And I didn't know this, because this is coming up when I searched Designers Republic. I didn't know they had designed this as well. But that's awesome. What a funny little coincidence that is. But I don't know, there's just something real nice about it. And even this shirt, this looks like something Gabby would wear. Like, her shirt does look like this. I didn't even know about this album until last year. But Gabby's shirt literally looks like like her singlet that she wears. Looks like... Doesn't it look like the... Yeah, it looks like the same thing. It's got the stripes and everything. So you can kind of see there. Oh, I want a picture. Where's a picture of Gabby? Yeah, that's right. I'm too lazy to get through my files. I'm just going to Google. Oh, this will work. We got a nice front profile there. But yeah, it's like, dude, Gabby's on the Autobahn right now. So the thing is, something about when I designed Gabby was probably putting all this into practice subconsciously, without me knowing. So that's kind of why I feel very, very enticed to learn more about all of this, because I don't want to do it unconsciously. I want to do it consciously, with full awareness of what's going on. But with Gabby's costume, it was purely unconscious guidance. I guess some part of my brain knew I liked this aesthetic and this ethos somehow. I didn't know it at the time. And I like how this looks, and the game kind of has to match this now. So I'm trying to figure out consciously, how do you pull off something like that on purpose, not by accident? Because then if you know how to do it consciously, you don't have to rely on, oh, and then one day I just did this. You know how, like, if you draw, I don't know how many artists are in chat. You know, like when you draw and like some days you just can't do it, and it's like some days your drawings look amazing, and some of them they just don't, and you don't know why. I think when you know how to consciously comprehend all this stuff, it makes it so that those days where you know what you're doing happens like most of the time, instead of just, oh, and then just one day I drew something awesome and I don't understand why. That's the sort of, I don't know, I think that's why that's important. But on the topic of Design Republic, so I've been trying to learn more, not just about the design ethos, but about the people that were actually there, like designing, like who is coming up with this? How are they coming up with this? What are they thinking? How are they thinking? What is their intent? Like if you had to think about the artist intent behind this, what is it? How does it work? And I happened to come across this old interview from 1994 in this magazine. I think it's called Emigre Volume 29. I don't know if there's an archive of it somewhere, but this is really expensive to find in the wild now. But I've been reading through this magazine. Oh, here it is on the Internet Archive. Epic. And it's got a bunch of their sort of design work on this. And I think I showed you guys this pictures of this a few weeks ago. But I've been actually reading through the articles because it's got this huge interview section with the design team. And I mean, just look how this is so gorgeous. I mean, look at this. This is just so cool. And it's like, how do you consciously do this on purpose? This is the mystery. So yeah, you can see on some of these pages, I haven't read all of it yet, but it's impossible to read like on this picture. But I was able to find a copy of this thing somewhere, and you can actually read because the text is this thing is huge, by the way. Like it's like the size of 2 newspapers. It's massive, and it's got these huge columns in it with all this. Everything in bold is the designer talking. Everything in not bold is questions. So you can see they have a lot to say. Just from a tiny little question of how did you come up with the name or something, they have whoever they're interviewing has a lot to say about it. So I've been reading through this just in the evenings, just to get a sense of who these people were, and what they believed in, what they thought about, how they thought, and that sort of thing. And you learn a lot from doing that you wouldn't really be able to deduce from the pictures. And it's been very illuminating. So there's some other design. Oh, this is a bit easier to read, this one. You can see here, there's some of the interview here in this column. What's also cool is even just the design of the magazine itself is really good. Like the layout of the page, the grid system columns, it is gorgeous. And I think they designed their own fonts for this magazine, which is just amazing. It's so cool. It's way more fun than reading Twitter, like the boring layout with like this is cool. And like, look at this sort of stuff, man. This is awesome. So what's interesting, there was a little paragraph I read about this. I'll read you this little excerpt that I thought was so interesting. They were just geeked like that, says probably. Yeah, I mean, they were. Well, the funny thing is, so I was reading through the start of the interview, and these guys didn't have any training in design, by the way. They were completely just doing it because, let's just do what's cool. And they were outsider, you could call them outsider artists. For those who don't know, there's... outsider artist is sort of like when you're not part of like a university institution or in the industry or whatever. Like these guys were just doing their own thing, and they weren't really that. I don't want to overuse this word, but they weren't very mainstream, you could say, at least at the time. Now there was a little part here. I'm just trying to find what page it was on. They said something about. Yeah, so this guy, Ian Anderson, who I think is the founder of the Designers Republic, said, when just being asked about being sort of having their work overlooked, or... Oh no, so the question was, are the designers who work for the Designers Republic okay with the fact that the work is credited as being designed by the Designers Republic instead of having their individual names? Because they go just it's a design house, and they have, I don't know how many, probably like a few, like half a dozen designers, but they all just go under the one name, Designers Republic. And in response to that, Ian said something about, using the name adds to the mystique of the company. But he said something interesting here about I wouldn't want them to be... Okay, no, here it is. It's as much... So here's a quote from Ian, the founder. It's as much about attitude, temperament, and personality as it is about design. It's about the way we work, not the work itself. And like our work, where we enjoy deliberately creating confusion and contradiction and working on different levels, both visually and contextually. And I personally haven't met anyone that thinks that way, but this is the stuff I've been trying to get a handle on for the last few months. And when I was doing Gabby's model, I kind of came to find that my temperament was changing, and it was more about the spirit and attitude of the thing than the actual thing. And it was just really, I don't know what the word to use is. It's very illuminating reading these dudes from like before I was born talk about those same ideas and like get it. And I that made me smile reading that. I'm like, oh my god, they're just like me for real. Well, hopefully I'll be just like them someday. But it's, you know, I thought, man, that's really cool. So they also feel it. Because, I don't know, a lot of design people, game designers and all that I've talked to in the past, don't pay any attention to that. They just think it's all about the work. And it's all about the code. It's all about the key, whatever you type on the keyboard. But I've always believed it's more about what Ian said, about temperament and personality. So it's maybe that's why I was even drawn to this in the first place, you know, just subconsciously. Maybe there's something about that. So I just thought that was so interesting. And it's stuff, you know, you can only really find in these old magazines, unfortunately. So I was glad I started reading through that, because it illuminates a lot about, because it isn't just the work, it's the people. That's what makes this work look cool. It's not what's actually on the thing. It's the ethos of the whole process. This is something that an AI can't do. An AI does not have an ethos. It doesn't have a temperament. It doesn't have a personality. So this is sort of that hidden ingredient. This is the dragon scroll of, like, I think what separates AI slop from real design. It isn't the actual thing on the page. It's the person, the creator. So I just thought it was really interesting how back in 1994, you know, they all had this figured out. And like people who I talk to nowadays think this is all just rubbish. And it's like, no, you just gotta get the best tools, man. You just gotta use the latest Creative Cloud and it doesn't matter. And it's like, no, man, it doesn't. It's you matter a lot more than the technology. And I don't know, it's just really affirming to read that the guys back then also thought that. Because I don't even know what software they would have used to make all their graphics back then. I think they used like a Macintosh. That's all I know is that they used a Macintosh. I don't know what software though. Maybe an old version of Photoshop. So anyway, I just thought that was really cool. I don't know. What do you guys make of that? Jada says Wipeout was super amazing. Yeah, I found an old copy of. I don't know if it's like. Because I know there's a lot of Wipeout games. A few months ago, I did find a used copy of Wipeout Fusion, and that was really cool as like a game. It's not the usual kind of thing I would play, but it's stylish. And it was made like 20-some years ago, and I thought, man, this rocks. This is awesome. But yeah, artistic consistency, says Jadis. Yeah, well, it isn't just consistency. I would say consistency is one part, but it's also just deliberation and intentionality, so that you can like communicate. It's sort of like if you're writing. I don't know if you guys struggle with this. If you're in university or in high school and you have to write an essay about something, and you know what you're thinking, but you can't communicate. Like no matter how much you keep writing about it, you just can't communicate what you're actually thinking, and it gets. I guess at that point, you're just like, oh man, I'll just get the freaking ChatGPT to write it or something. But you know that sort of frustration, right? Where the thing you want to say is not what's coming out. I think visually in design, it's a similar act of writing. It's visual instead of literary with language. And designs, they communicate something. They say something that you can't quantify with English or with language. It communicates something else. And I think the struggle that at least I'm having a little bit is I have a feeling inside subconsciously, and I'm doing the best I can with my ability to bring it out. But when I bring it out, it isn't quite what I feel like is what I wanted to say, you know? So the thing is, though, when I look at their designs, I don't even know what they were intending, but I can feel something very powerful that I don't feel in my own stuff. And it's like, all right, well, and it's really hard to quantify and put into words too, but I just feel like this sense of, I don't know, like you look at the whole thing and you go, wow, and you know that in 20 years it'll still make you go, wow. And that I feel like I'm like 60 or 70% of the way there with my own work, but I'm not 100% of the way there. And it's like, I know that there's some gap that I'm standing in front of. So it's just, I don't know, so I've just been having that in the background. I've been switching gears lately to work more on other things, but just in the background, I've been trying to reflect on where I'm falling short with these. Because some of you the other week when I showed this last challenged me to take it further. You said that, oh, this looks good, it's okay, but you could take it further. And I guess what I'm trying to do is, it's like, how do you take it further without taking it too far and without ruining it? Because if you add more, you know, you can add a lot of stuff that looks ugly. It's like, well, how do you take it further the right way? And that's sort of the thing. Because I'm reasonably happy with these. Like, they don't annoy me, but they're just, like you guys said, there could be a bit more. You could go a bit further and add a bit more. And it's like, I want to accept that challenge and do it because it would be cool, and I can kind of see what you mean. And as I've been looking at my references, I can see each of these guys do take it a bit further. I'm taking it a little safe at the moment by comparison. But I know that there's a way they take it further that is not just random and not just thoughtless. There's something, like even this silhouette here of this ship is just so cool. It's like, and even all this stuff. So there's that hidden ingredient. There's that hidden thing I'm just trying to get a handle on. And I think it's about like Eula Brockman says, it's the character of the designer. So I'm trying to get a handle on the character of the Designers Republic, of who they were. And maybe I can find some answers. So that's sort of been the status report on the design end of things. But it's so fascinating. I'm been learning a lot. I'm not really putting much into work this week, but I'm inputting a lot. I'm taking in a lot of information, which I think will help elevate all of this just a little bit higher up, and then it'll be like, oh yeah, that's it. I think you guys said this about the cover image too for the Steam page, is that it's like 90% there, but it could be a bit more. So that's sort of the thing I'm trying to work out, is what is that extra thing that people could see that I can't yet, you know? Coesta, oh, you got an interesting comment here. Coesta says AI is actually a net positive because it will force real artists to up their integrity. You know what? Yeah, I do kind of... We've been... On the Discord this week, we had a little discussion about AI. Because I had to... one of you posted this video about the future of user interfaces. Or it's like, why is UI so dead now? Or I think that was this video. One of you linked this, and it was sort of like positing that the future, and I think this is all just some ad for this. I think it's like an AI. I don't know. Let's actually look. Yeah, it's an AI web builder, right? And the thing is, this right here, because I watched up until about here-ish, I think. I didn't watch like all of it. But I think from what I remember him saying, he's positing that the future of interfaces will not be graphical. It'll be like a worse version, in my opinion, of like the Star Trek computers, where you talk to the computer. And, you know, it's like, oh, you could just type in text. And that, like, the thing is, as much as I hate it, I have seen it going this way, and I had to do something this week. I was on some help center dashboard. I needed to change some legal thing for some customer support. I was in this customer support portal, and the portal, instead of being this well-organized wiki like it used to be, it's now this design where it's like, what do you need help with? And it's this chat box thing. So I ask it a question. I'm like, how do I change this info on my account? And it's like, oh, well, if you want to change the info on the account, you got to go to the help center. All right, well, how do I go there? Oh, just click on the help button in the bottom corner, and I click on it. It takes me back to the menu I was just on, where it's like, hey, welcome back to the help center. How can we help you? I'm like, I want to change this on my account. It's like, oh, you can't change it from the dashboard. You have to contact support. How do I contact support? Click on the support button. I click on the button. It takes me back here. How can we help you? I say, I want to change. And it takes me in circles for 20 minutes. And I'm just like, oh my God, dude. Like, can we just go back to having buttons? And then I can click on, like, oh my God. So they've replaced their help center basically with this sort of interface. And I don't like it because it doesn't work. It just takes you in circles, and half the information is just unreliable anyway. But you are right, Coesta. As much as I hate it, it means that if you really want to stand out, you got to try a lot harder. And you know, I've never been one to shy away from a challenge. I'm personally, you know, I know a lot of people kind of carry on and they get a bit sort of despair. They feel a bit of despair about it, feeling like, oh, AI is it's gonna take over. I agree, it will take over if your work, I think, is average. If it's not good, then yeah, it will get taken over. But maybe it deserves to be if it's average. But I know for a fact that this sort of stuff it's not going to beat something like Designers Republic. Absolutely not. So that means, yeah, it's just raising the bar to a degree. As much as I hate it, I would agree with that. So I guess, you know, that does motivate me to try a lot harder. Because I know that an AI can't do this. I just know. Not like this anyway. But yeah. Cybershell says, it's like you're creating mental parameters to carry the style all the way through the game. Exactly. That's exactly right, Cybershell. The thing is, that's a good way of putting it too, because I didn't know the word for it, but mental parameters is apt. That's exactly it. Because I do recognize in all this reference, I know these are all from different places, but I can recognize mental parameters or an ethos being used. I don't know what they are. I don't know the design document. Okay, I haven't seen what the design document for this would have been, where they write them out. All I see is the result. But I can just tell that there's some system, there is a mental options, parameters, and rules going on. But the trick of a skilled designer is that they do it so well that they hide it. And you don't notice it. And it's really a invisible art. And I've grown to, over the last few months, really appreciate all of this. Because this is all the stuff I grew up with, this sort of design, like from toys to TV shows to websites. And man, like whoever was designing stuff, all of this back then, you know, they were really something. They were really, really skilled. And I don't know, I think they had to be. I think the reason they had to be is so that there would be a next generation after them of designers that would want to do the same thing. So that's kind of, I feel like it's planting, all of this plants a seed, this sort of stuff, where it's like, we're going to make this so cool that it's going to plant a seed in someone's head to want to recreate this when they become like 20, 25 or something. So... But you can see, I don't know, you can see there's a rule, there's an ethos, there's something about, it's slightly different for each one, but I think the thing I'm finding in common with these specific ones is that they all use similar ethos. They have a similar character to them. Not exactly the same, but it's similar. And I don't know, there's a mystery. And I don't know, there's just something cool about it. Coesta says it's funny because it's the kind of stuff AI should be good at. I suppose, yeah. But people are over-relying on an infantile tool. Well, I think maybe that has something to do with the fact that the ethos or the rule or what did Cybershell say? The mental parameters. Maybe there's something about the parameters that is emotional, if that makes sense. That has to be what my guess is, because I've been trying to come up with mathematical, objective things, and I think there's a degree to which that's there, where there's math, there's proportions and like consistency or harmony going on. But I think there is a emotional element to some, like, for example, why does Lazy Town's things here, why is every box angled like this? Why does it get bigger at the top and slanted, and then it looks sort of wonky, right? But it looks cool. Like, it doesn't look off, but it's not like perfectly, it's like sort of lazy, you could say. It's got a lazy sort of slouchy shape, but it is like well proportioned. And it's got like really, how do you pick that? Like, how do you this isn't just randomly, oh, I'm just gonna draw it here because whatever. It's like, no, this is mathematical precision, but it's like, you see how the line gets a little thicker there and gets thinner? Like that red? So it's like, how do they know, like, how do you make a choice like that? And I know that there's an emotion here. It feels playful, like toy-like almost, and maybe that's what went into it. Or for something more adult, like, or serious like this, you notice that there's a bit of an absence of that stuff. It's all more straight, and it's got this sort of serious, and you can sort of see it in the colors. And then with some of these other ones, so I don't know, like, I can't even quite quantify it myself exactly, but there is this, maybe that would be why an AI can't do it, because an AI can't feel emotions. But the decision making behind this, what word did you use, Cybershell? Mental parameters. The mental parameters might be like emotional parameters of some kind, which have a hook in the objective, but like they have 1 foot in the objective and 1 foot in the subjective. Because that, and I'm still trying to figure out what that means exactly, but that's the best way I can describe it. And that would explain why it's so elusive and why you can't imitate it without emotion. Because that's the common thing, isn't it? Is that anything that tries to imitate this, whether it's an unenthusiastic board designer or a calculating algorithm, you'll notice that anything without emotion is incapable of imitating it. That's the common variable that they all have, is that they lack emotion. And that's what makes them unable to do it. So, I don't know. So I'm sure that I'll learn a lot more as I continue reading this magazine, this interview, about the sort of emotions that go into, like, this is the cover of it here. And I know with these guys, I can already pick up some differences between, in terms of emotional tone, what they've got and what I'm trying to do. Because for this stuff, from the bit I have read, they talk a lot about being kind of, it has like a sarcasm and anti-corporate, flippant attitude to it, which is, of the time, that was very much the counterculture, where it's like, it's the screw corporations mentality. That there's a lot of that to it, where it's sort of making a mockery of the corporate attitude. So on the back of this, you'll, like, the random words that they put in is sort of a part of that as well. So if you read very closely at this cover, you'll see just smaller words like death toys, which is sort of and it's got a trademark on it. And you might wonder, well, how do you come up with that? And it's like, well, if their attitude is we hate companies and we're sort of trying to make a mockery of the corporate system, then these sort of little phrases start to make sense. And it's like, oh, I understand why that's there now. Or even just this character they have that's just made of circles. It's like, Sissy, she is cute. She will kill you. Like, having that on a poster is sort of funny, because posters back then were mostly to advertise and for corporate stuff. So having these sort of sarcastic, witty lines in it, is sort of, because it looks like legal fine print. But it's, when you look closely, instead of having this, we hold no liabilities, whatever, it's got this cute little phrase saying, she'll kill you. So it's just kind of funny, But, when you know what your own ethos is, because you can't just copy what these guys have got. I think a lot of people just rip this off. So you got to think, well, unless you authentically have the same ethos, then yeah, you could pull this off. But I know that my personal ethos is not exactly, it's got some things in common, but it isn't exactly this like this. It's got a bit of a different twist. So for my designs, I probably wouldn't, I want a bit of less sass in there. I want a bit more of whatever Lazy Town's got, where it's got more of a youthful innocence, whereas this has a more like cynical sarcasm. Like, it's playful cynical sarcasm, I would say, is sort of imbued in this a little bit. So I want a bit less of that in my one. So that's how I would know what not to do in my designs. That doesn't tell me what everything to do, but it gives me a bit of, okay, what not to do. So I wouldn't do stuff like adding random sarcastic little fine print in my stuff. But if your thing is more like, if you're designing something and you have this thing that is part of you, like you're, not just because you admire it, but that's always been a part of your personality, then it would make sense for you to adopt a similar things like these little bits. I could easily imagine, actually, the first, I don't know if Ratchet & Clank does this, but I could imagine I don't know exactly if they would, what their designs were on the boxes. I can't remember exactly. But I feel like this would belong in a Ratchet & Clank game, some of this. Like having these little, like if you were in a urban city in the first Ratchet & Clank game and there had to be posters, I think bits of this, maybe, sans the rounded corners, if this was more squarish and metal and a bit more material looking with these little sarcastic things, I feel like that would fit that game pretty well in terms of the tone, because Ratchet & Clank tonally was a lot like this. But yeah, and then you can sort of see then, if you look for details like that in these other ones, you can start to see how each is, like Persona, you can see here how it doesn't have any of that, and it feels classier and more sophisticated, even though the actual shapes might be similar. And you can see with Sonic Riders, it feels a bit more athletic. Or, what are these other ones? Like Smash Bros. I don't even know. I can't quite figure this one out yet. This is a bit too subtle for me to notice. But yeah, then you can sort of see Lazy... That's a very extreme... I can notice it here. Where this, it's sort of... It's more toy-like and playful than the other one. And I don't know. You just sort of look at this stuff and you try to pick it apart like that. And you can see here, this is where it gets interesting, where corporations started to pick up on the design of this. And this is the sort of corporate spin on it, where it's got sort of the same shapes, but it's got the fine print, but it doesn't have the witty sarcasm in it. And it has a different feel, even though it's sort of picking up bits of the same... Because this website was probably from 10 years after this cover. Because this was 1994. This, I think, is exactly 2000. Oh, it's 2002. Okay, so 8 years after. So that by that time, companies probably would have started picking up on it. Anyway, so I'm getting a bit too much into the history here. But, there's... I don't know. There's a lot of thought put into all this stuff, I guess is what I'll conclude with on this topic. There's a lot of thought put into all of this that you wouldn't notice immediately. Coesta says, okay, but why does Scooby-Doo on the Y2K background work so well? That's what I'm trying to find out, because it does look really cool, right? It looks so stylish. Why does it work? I don't know. I have no idea, but I know that I like it. So what I'm trying to figure out is, how would I do this with Gabby on purpose and have it look just as good without it just looking like a copy, Because this does look sick. I love this. I don't know why it works, though. I don't know why I like this picture, but I know that I do like this picture. And as I've been making the game, I've learned that... Because it's more work to ask the question of why do I like this. But I found in other elements of the game, like the art style, the mechanics, when I do ask those questions and figure them out, I get lots better. Like, the results are a lot better once I figure that out. And you can sort of see even in the game how earlier prototypes before I had figured it out versus after I figure it out, you can you see a huge difference. So that's why, I don't know, I want to get to the bottom of it, because I know that when I do, I'm going to go from, it's like going from Gabby's old model to her new model. That's the difference between knowing, like those who don't know versus those who know, you know? So anyway, think about how Scooby acts, how Scooby'd act in that picture setting. Actually, we'll look at that again, actually. That's a good question to ask. Oh yeah, this is another one with some logos on it. And I think some of these are just straight up from the Designers Republic magazine I've been reading. Like, the logos they do look the exact same as this. But I know that for me, just my personal subjective, what I like, is that this circle, especially things like this circle, where it has the thick, the thin, and then the thick again, and this sort of shape. Something about this feels sporty. And, you know, my personal style, I'm not really, like, I don't wear sporty clothes. I don't have sporty decorations in my room. But Gabby would like this. So I know that this, if I could understand how this is made and why, I know that this would look good with Gabby. Because her design is very, I mean, she's, you know, she's like a pseudo gymnast cat girl thing that can do all these flips. So of course she would be into that, right? So, you know, it's got to match Gabby. It's got to be congruent with her character. So, and yeah, you can see the same shapes being used on this cover and then on these logos. But on the other, where was the one that we were looking at here with all the Scooby-Doo renders? So what was it you said? I'm trying to find it. Oh, you guys, okay, we've got some more interesting comments here. Probably Ree says, it's pretty interesting how a generation's vision of the future is aesthetically built off the visions of those that came before them. It creates this interesting continuous chain of influence. That's a very, very insightful observation, probably, Ree. You know what's really funny about that? Okay, I'm going to whip out the magazine again. I'm going to read you another quote, because you're gonna love this. So, Ian Anderson agrees. He thinks the exact same way as you do. And there's a big quote that they put in the magazine here. And they actually, this quote is so cool that they literally put it in a big box next to the interview in bigger font because it's that cool. There's two quotes actually that I want to get to, but I'll just read that one. Hold on. You can hear me like flipping the pages of this thing. Yes, so the Designers Republic, this was in 1994, mind you. This is what they have to say about that. So quoting, there's no conscious effort to create a new movement or style, just a continuing desire to work further and further into what we do to see what's on the other side, to constantly reinvent and reinterpret yesterday's work tomorrow, and to take ideas beyond logical extremes so that we can enjoy what we find on the way back, as long as it looks good, of course. So, you know, that's in 1994, they were doing the same thing. And that's sort of what I've unconsciously started doing before I even read that. I was like trying to do that and go, oh, well, let's go back 20 years and see what I liked. They're doing the same thing, and that's why their stuff looks good. You know, that's why it's so great. Because I think one of you even mentioned that a lot of this was influenced from 1950s retro futurism, like the Jetsons and stuff. And if we look at that up, I'm sure we'll start seeing some things in common, probably. Because this is probably the generation that would have inspired. Like, you can sort of see in the shapes of these, like they've got these, just the color schemes and the shapes and the line work. You can start to see, it's like less, it's a bit different in character, but you got to remember people in the 50s had different, there was a different tone of that era. You know, this was post World War II, and you know, I imagine the general average person back then would have been a lot more optimistic, which is why they started coming up with all these things. You know what's really funny, actually, and I don't want to get too deep into current events or whatever, but it's so interesting how the depictions of the future in the 50s was stuff like the Jetsons, right? Whereas nowadays, it's like cyberpunk, where it's like dystopian. You guys notice that? How like, or like Blade Runner or something. Like what people are imagining the future as now is like, who's that guy? He's literally me. The guy that everyone says is literally me. Ryan Gosling. Yeah. Like this is the attitude people have now about the future, right? Like I don't think I'm that far off, right? People are looking around at the world today and they look at the future, and this is the character of people now. But people in the 50s, it was this. You see how there's such a huge shift in spirit, where it was like optimism of we're gonna have, and the robots are not gonna be like, even the robots have character to them. You know, they aren't just uncanny androids. Like they have distinct shapes and like they're sort of toy-like. But then you look at like, you know, how are robots depicted in this? Oh, they're just like humans, but they live for 5 years or something. And we're going to go and kill them. Like that's sort of the whole thing with Blade Runner, isn't it? So it's just interesting how the tone over the last 60 to 80 years has gone from, you know, paradise to it's over. You know, like that's what I think when I look at pictures like this. If I had to put the Designers Republic little words in here, I would write the words "it's over, it's so over." You know, that's what I would write. But on this, I would write "we're so back," because that's sort of how this felt. So, you know, that is an interesting phenomenon there. And you said something else with the, because I think the vision of the future, what I at least like about the 1990s 2000s stuff is that it still had that optimism to it, which I don't think has been there since then. So that's at least for me what makes me go to this era for my own inspiration. So we'll go back to the Scooby-Doo picture, because you guys said something interesting about this. Oh, where was it? Think about how Scooby-Doo acts and how Scooby-Doo acted in that picture's setting. Because I haven't watched Scooby-Doo, so I don't really know. But Scooby-Doo seems chill and jovial and a bit goofy to me. Like he seems groovy. And I can just see him grooving out here. And I feel like maybe this style is maybe a bit groovy as well. Maybe there's something to it. Because Scooby-Doo has gone over iterations. Like he's from the Gen X people. This is the character that he's from. And his style has changed. Like you can tell that this is a 1990s Scooby-Doo and not a 1970s Scooby-Doo. Because the older Scooby-Doo I don't think he's got this many sharp lines on him. I don't think. So I can tell that this is from like 90s Scooby-Doo, just from the line work alone. And I think that goes quite well with this background in a way that the older drawings of the characters probably wouldn't. Groovy, says Cybershell. Yeah, he does seem very groovy. And you can see they got little groove lines here as well that they've drawn around him. Very groovy. They've got these lines everywhere. Yeah, look at that. Look at those lines they're putting around his... It's the groove lines. Look at that. maybe I gotta give Gabby groove lines. When, like in her idol pose, just around her hands, I gotta have these groove lines. But it is, I don't know, it adds something to it. Probably says being cultured or well-read really helps in having the source material and shape refine a definite vision. You know, funny that, because I used to kind of not like I don't know, I've never considered myself very cultured or well-read. So I always kind of resented and thought it was all a bit snobbish, you know. It's like, oh, you read? Ugh, who needs that? But no, actually, I think there's an extreme, but I think there is a middle ground where you got to at least read a bit, and to understand it. I think it gets a little too far though when you overread and just do that and not put it to practice though. So that's kind of what that's sort of why I've always avoided reading. I didn't want to become just an academic. But it is paying off though. It's paying off a bit though to at least read a bit about it. So Michelle says, dude, I'm Ryan Gosling too. yeah. Well, the thing is, right, everyone laughs. It's like, oh, he's me. Ryan Gosling's so me. But it's like, is this who we want to be, guys? Like, just to be real for it, if I go back to the Ryan Gosling, is this who we want to be, guys? Do we want to be... Okay, I'm just... Because this picture here, I'm just a little... Not the caption, whatever the caption's about. But just... Because then he's got that scene where he's like screaming at the thing, going, God damn it! Like, guys, we gotta be real for a second. Is this who we want to be? Do we want to be the guy that is sort of... got the 1,000-yard stare into the night and always is saying to himself, God damn it, and everything? I don't want to be that. I know that that's maybe what a lot of us are right now, but that's not what I want to aspire to, personally. It just makes me think of this picture. This is the same... Corporate wants you to find the difference between these two pictures. They're the same picture. Like this is basically the boomers version. Okay, and it's like, is this who we want to be? Is this who we want literally me to be? Okay, I don't want to be this. I mean, we might have to become this, but I don't want to become that. I want to be, I want to be like Scooby-Doo. I want to be grooving. That's what I want to be. I want to be able to look at this and go, he's literally me. He's just grooving out. Or like this. That's like, look, I want a big smile. I don't want a 1,000-yard stare. So, or like this sort of stare. This is way cooler. So, you know, anyway, so that's sort of, in terms of design, all that stuff, it's been a lot of reading. So not a lot of cool showing off type things, but I don't know, man. I think there's something to this whole thing that I really want to figure out. But in the meantime, I've been spending most of my time on this devlog about Gavi's model, which has been in the works for a little while now. But it's been coming along a lot faster. So I'll show you a bit of how that's looking at the moment. Hold on, let me just minimize chat. Ryan Gosling, 1,000-yard stare. yeah. Well, I want a 2-meter stare, not a 1,000-yard one. I don't know. I'm assuming that's just the opposite. Just have Gabby's idle animation pulling out a Wii and playing Just Dance. Hell yeah. Well, Gabby would own a Wii, because a Wii does look pretty cool. How do you model the buildings in Blender? I haven't modeled buildings in Blender, personally. I'm actually trying to avoid modeling environments in Blender at all at the moment. But there was something here that Jada said I just wanted to read as well. Who says, I'm still trying to grip my personal ethos. What makes my work feel like me? I think if you really want to go down the rabbit hole on that, because this is going to be different for everyone, but I think it helps to be introspective, and you kind of have to know yourself inside and out, I think, to know the answer to that. And this was something that would be something that would help you in more than just knowing how to design. But I think it helps to know... I'm just trying to think of a short way to give you some guidance on that. Because you know how Brockman says every visual work is the character of the designer? And to understand your own character, you know how like old people will say you gotta go through conflict, or you gotta You got to do this hard back-breaking labor because it builds character. And I think it is just that simple. You gotta you gotta suffer more and like do hard things, and you will build character that way. And I think during that process, you go through doing things, and that could be working on a project, it could be actual literal backbreaking labor. As long as it's either physically or mentally demanding, if you spend a prolonged period engaged in that, and not like half doing it where you're like, you know, sleepwalking through the day and then doom scrolling at night. I mean like fully engaged and paying attention. I think if you do that for an extended period and you kind of reflect on and just check in with yourself occasionally on like how you're feeling about your work, or if something goes wrong, how you feel about it, or if it goes right, how you feel about it. If you just sort of, you know, keep tabs on yourself, you will start to get a very clear idea on on two things, on who you are and who you're not. And I think when you know those, you can start to more clearly see your character, which will influence your work. Now, then there's the whole second thing. Well, how do you do that on purpose, where the visual output is, you know, representing you the way you want? I'm not so sure. That's the bit I'm figuring out still. Maybe it's not possible. I don't know. Maybe it just has to be based on vibes or something. But I do know that there is a degree. This is why AI can't copy it, is because an AI has no character. So what's the old, hold on, the Oracle sums this up better than me. I actually have one picture that I can just use instead to show you the answer to that. It's really simple. I just want to find the picture. Yeah, this is literally, yeah, it's literally this. Hold on. You guys have all seen The Matrix, right? It's literally that simple. Which, it's not that simple, but the answer is, it's all in this frame. This will tell you everything. To know what your personal ethos is, on how to bring it into your design, and how did you word it? You worded it a very particular way. Your personal ethos, how to know what makes your work feel like you, and to actually do it on purpose. You gotta do this, what the Oracle says. And to quote the Oracle, for those that haven't seen The Matrix for some reason, which I don't know, if you haven't seen it, you're being silly and you should see it. But to quote the Oracle, she says, you know what that means? You know what that sign says? It says, know thyself. And that's literally it. All right. I think I've stretched that point out, I think, long enough. We'll talk a little about, speaking of personal ethos, because this is something I've been trying to get a handle on for this. This is part of the reason why this devlog has been taking forever. For Gabby's model, which some of you have seen on the stream. I might get her open, because it's been a while since we've seen Gabby. I'll open her up in Blender. Because there's a lot about this that I'm now retroactively noticing in this model that I kind of vaguely started to understand, but now I understand a lot more. The more design I do, the more I get it. And I can start to retroactively see a lot of this in Gabby's new model now. And I can start to also retroactively see how little of it there was in her old model. So, you know, it's kind of funny how that sort of works itself out. So here's Gabby. Everyone say hello. Say hi, Gabby. It's been a long time since we've seen her on the stream. I'll put her in her idle pose so that she doesn't look stressed out. That's better. Because her pose has a bit of a personality and ethos in it too, right? So, with the model, because I'm trying... The part of the reason this episode has been such a undertaking, it's actually... I think it's taken me more time to do this episode on the model than it took to actually make the model. Because you know how there's that old saying where if you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, then you don't understand it? So I've been trying to do that. And because I was sitting here doing it, I did some of it on stream. I did a lot of it just privately without really talking to anyone. And I needed a lot of space and quiet time just alone to build this. And I might have said this before, but this really did like change my whole life, building the model this way and like being fully dialed in and like fully, like, you know how, like I just said, right? You know, demanding labor builds character. So during this period of my life, which was, you know, from like July 2023 to early 2024, I was literally building character. I was building Gabby, and I was kind of building my own personal character. I found that I developed personally a lot doing this, and I've been trying to work out how to communicate that across in my video, as well as explain in a non-overwhelming way all of the technical aspects to building this and to have it look like this. And not just the ethos, but the, you know, the technique, the actual technique as well. And it's been very challenging because, you know, you forget things. So, you know, I finished this model like last year, and there's a lot that I forget about. And then when you try to go back and retread it, you got to remember, oh, how did I do that? How did I do this? And then how do I explain it simply so that if there was a 5-year-old watching this video, they would sort of get the gist of it. Because, you know, if you can't explain it that simply, then maybe you don't actually understand it that well. So I want to really make sure that if I'm going to make this huge video talking about it, that I actually get it and it isn't just a fluke. So the video has been coming across a lot quicker now, because I don't know what it is, but something about me reading all these design books has helped. I can't quite put a finger on why. But a big reason this was stuck was that the voiceover was too dense. So there's a lot of, earlier in the streams this year, I've shown you guys little clips of the day-to-day work where I've got me recording as I'm modeling, and I'm talking about all the issues I'm having, and like I'm stuck on this and that and so forth. I've got all of those edited down, and that's all been processed, and that's all ready. But the in-between narration, stringing those together, has also just been, I can just tell that it hasn't been that good. So I've been going through and rewriting for the final time each paragraph so that it's intentional and not a huge slog to read. So you'll notice that each little bit here is quite short. Like the paragraphs are not huge walls of text, and they used to be huge. But now each one is broken up into these very modular chunks explaining just one thing. And I've got these little to-dos here of like where I have to put in pictures. Because this is also, by the way, part of the reason I've been writing it out like this is that this is also going to be on the blog when I get to, once the web design is finished, there is going to be a post on there with this exact text with the images put in as a blog post with all of this in. So I think a little late, I've got some attachments put in here already, like this one explaining surface normals. And this particular chapter has been so hard because it's easy to overcomplicate it and to over-explain it. But I'm actually now happy with how I've explained it now. I can feel like this to me I'll read you the bit here, because I just re-recorded the voiceover for it yesterday, explaining the topology and how it all works together. So I'm trying to explain like how the shader is coded, but without over-explaining it. And I had this bit here I was quite happy with, why the cell shading glitches out when you don't do the normals. Because when you try to recreate this hard, and I can show you guys here, like you see how there's like this thing with the shadows, how there's no in between whether it's light or dark. It's like either shaded or it's not shaded, or it's, you know, highlighted. There's no gradients, there's no softness, there's none of that stuff going on. And that's on purpose. That's exactly how I wanted it. I didn't want it to have any soft painterly shading or anything like that. But when you do that in 3D, when you try to recreate it, if you don't do the normal super deliberately, it becomes a huge pain. So I'll just show you a live demo of that. Because this I did a while ago, but this was so complicated to do, because you see how the shadows, now it's not going to be perfect because I have the rig posed, and it does break a bit when you pose the face, but I think on Arc System Works characters it does the same, so I'm not too stressed about that. But you see how I've got these deliberate things where there's the shadow under the eye, and like the shadows kind of like snap in, and you see how there's a bit of highlight, and if I go and turn on the wireframe, you can see how the shadows actually hang around the actual topology, which is why the topology is so weird. Like this triangle, you can see it's coloring the shadow in. So one of the main challenges has been, like, how do I just explain that in like in 30 seconds? How do I explain that in a way that someone who has never picked up Blender before would sort of understand the gist of, you know, without it sounding like boring technobabble? And this is, I think I'm pretty happy with this, where it's like, it occurs because, I'll just read you this little segment. The normals are calculated automatically based on the direction of each face, which all point in different directions on an uneven surface. And this is just a Wikimedia Commons picture of how, you notice how on each face the surface normal's pointing a different way. And, you know, the shader doesn't know this is unintended. It's just calculating it mathematically. And it always applies the threshold on the shader, regardless of how it looks. So to do that, to fix all that stuff, you gotta control all those normals yourself. And then in the next chapter here, I start explaining the different methods. And you'll notice that each bit of text is like condensed and short, and it's not a huge text wall. And there's gonna be little pictures in between each one. So, because that's the level I want. That's the quality level that I try to get for my videos, where it's not just this boring like GDC technical reading. It's like an entertaining, like, wow, I learned something really cool, and I don't even know anything about 3D, but I thought this was so interesting. Like, that's the sort of thing that's the level I've been wanting to get it at. It's just so hard because only one studio in the whole planet has done this. So it's like, how do you, as a amateur that is not, you know, doesn't have 20 years practice in animation like these other guys, how do you like do that thing and then explain it to, you know, just a normal person that is not a 3D modeler? So I don't know, that's been the challenge, and I'm a lot happy with how this is going now. The bit I still have to do is this whole, you can see that this whole chapter is a lot more dense on the facial modeling. You can see I've crossed out a bunch of stuff here of sentences that just run on a bit too long or just a bit repetitive or whatever. Because this is the bit I haven't gotten to. The rest I've rewritten and I've redone the voiceover for. I think there's 2 chapters left, which is the face and the hair and the armor. Oh, there's 4 chapters left, my bad. But yeah, so it's about, still got all this I need to just go through and trim. So that's how that's been going. That's been most of my week of just re-recording and rewriting all this. But you see all the first half, it just looks less stressful to read. Like, I can just scroll through this, and your eye is sort of like, oh yeah, this seems digestible. And then you get to the second half, where I haven't rewritten it yet, and it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, this is a bit much. It's a bit much. It's a bit much, you know? So it's about getting it all kind of digestible like that. So anyway, that's how that's been going. I just want to say again that I really do appreciate your patience on this one. You guys have been waiting a long time for another episode, and I really do appreciate it. And I want you to have a good time watching this video, okay? I don't want you to get bored. So I've been putting in probably way more work than I should, but I think when it's done, it's going to be really good. It probably might be my best devlog ever. Hopefully I won't have to make another hour-long devlog again. Hopefully. But I wanted to ease the brakes a bit on the design and work on it this week, because I feel like all the stuff I've been doing lately, just with the graphic design, is going to be its own devlog. And it's like, all right, well, I should probably catch the videos up before I go off on another rabbit hole on more design stuff. So thanks very much for you guys for waiting for this video. I know it's been so long in the making, and I really appreciate all the patrons and members that have been financially supporting the channel through the production of this episode. It makes that sort of thing possible, and I really do appreciate it. You know, it means a lot. I know I don't go out of my way to say it enough, but I really do appreciate it. So yeah, that's why you're my op. Thanks, probably. Jada says, I already love your site, but reading your devlog on it would be amazing. Thank you. I hope so too. And I know it's been, I know I've been working on this whole, like, even the website has probably taken a few months now. It's all, everything ends up taking like 3 times longer than I imagine it will, but I have that hope as well, that when it is there and finished, it's going to be awesome. And I appreciate your enthusiasm, your enduring enthusiasm. It means a lot. Because I want you guys to have like the best time on this. I want you to have so much fun. I don't want it to just be like a thing you doom scroll through, you know? I want you to really get immersed in it the way that I get immersed in this stuff, you know? And then, you know, that probably would actually be something I'd be proud to put out, you know? And not just what the algorithm wants. And, you know, that, I don't know, I find that you can just sleep better when you orient yourself to stuff like that. So I know it means you got to wait for it, but I appreciate that you guys understand that. You know, I know it's very tempting to feel the opposite in today's culture, where it's all instant consuming. Everyone just wants everything now. But you know, I think I mean, hell, if people waited 7 years for Silk Song, and that seemed pretty worth it. So, you know, gives me some hope with that sort of thing. I do need to play that game, by the way. I've been hearing lots about it. That there's an Australian team too, I think, Silk Song, and they I think maybe one of you guys mentioned it, but yeah, I still got to get around to checking that out, because that's, I don't know, I just followed the news a little bit when it came out, and I just felt so happy, because it's very rare that you see people wait that long in a game, and it actually is good. So it gave me a lot of hope seeing that. So it motivates me even more to put in 100%, 110% effort on stuff like this. But you know, I just want to turn off the wireframe. But yeah, so that with all that weird topology and everything, once you get all the technical explanations out of the way, this is the sort of outcome you then would get from it. And with all the animations. This video, by the way, isn't even talking about the animations yet. This is literally just on the model, texture, and rig. The animations is still going to be its own video completely, because I had so much to say about the animations that I can't fit it. Because that's when I started doing all that studying of gymnastics and Sporticus and all that stuff. And that is a whole other rabbit hole in of itself, which would be like a whole 30-minute episode on its own. So this is just going to be on the modeling for the moment. But there's a lot to it, you know? But yeah, you can sort of see when we talk about design ethos and things, you can kind of see it though in the result here with like her pose, her eyes, her haircut, her costume. You can sort of see it in every individual frame of animation. You can see that, what was the word that I think it was Cybershell said? Ethos? The character of the designer. You can start to see it. So it's just a matter of trying to bring that into the conscious awareness. Because you know what I believe? Because you know, you might say like, who cares? Like, the player doesn't need to know this stuff. They don't. I would say they do need to. My argument would be, actually, the player should know this stuff. Maybe they should know it, because it is really interesting. And it's also, because I don't know if you guys share the sort of sentiment, but every so often I look on YouTube, right? And I look at gaming news on YouTube. I think one of you asked me last week if I take journalism that seriously, and I sort of had a very critical rant about game journalists. But what I do listen to is you search up like, search up gaming is dead, or you know, one of these sorts of videos, right? Channels like this, or okay, some of these I don't recognize. But there was this other one I was watching. Oh, what was the name of the channel? I don't remember the name of it. But it's these just ordinary people that just talk about how gaming used to be way better type stuff. Search up something. I don't know if you guys share this sentiment. You guys let me know. But I kind of have this in the back of my head a little bit. But you know, the sort of people that make videos like, oh, there was one I watched yesterday actually. It was called something like being gaming outpriced. Because and I don't know if other developers would agree with me, but you know, because there are developers that I've seen that don't like, oh, this channel, they have a lot of videos like this. Now, he talks a lot about the industry, and he does get things wrong from time to time, but I think it's useful looking at videos like this, because I feel like this is what a lot of people think, as in like, you go to the average gamer on the street or at a convention, and this is probably what I imagine channels like this are, is like, this is like the voice of most people, I'd imagine. I know you guys let me know if this does represent you or not, or if you don't quite agree. I'm curious how much of my audience sort of falls into this. But for me personally, I have a bit of my brain, my gamer brain is a lot like this, where this is sort of how this is sort of the sentiment that I feel as a gamer. As a developer, I have, you know, I sort of have a different perspective. But as a gamer, I can understand how these people think and what they're saying and what their problems with the way things are like. And when I think about this, it makes me wonder how much more insightful and how much of a better time gamers would have if they understood these invisible principles going on. Because I think subconsciously, when you look at the general sentiment for this, it's like the sentiment is that Steam is great, is the GOAT. The Steam Deck is amazing. The newer consoles are like overpriced and on the way out. Silksong is amazing. AAA is bad. Like, that's the sort of general set of preferences. And these do get a lot of attention. So I think it's safe to assume that the average person that plays just casually plays games, this is probably what they think, right? I don't know, you guys let me know. What are you in agreement with this, or are you a bit of an outlier? Mad Goose says, when I hear game journalists, I keep thinking back to that one video about the Cuphead. Dude, yeah, that's exactly what I think too, man. Yeah, that's what I always think. And it's like, all right, well, if they can't even play through the tutorial, why do I care what they think? Because that's the thing, is that journalists all say the opposite of this stuff, don't they? When I look at like journalists on IGN and stuff, I mean, not that I go looking for it often, but when I do see it, it's almost as if it's trying to do the opposite, where it's like, actually, it's good. The bad stuff is actually good. That's usually what I see when I look at this for the mainstream journalists, where it's like, actually, these overfunded AAA games, they're actually good. 9 out of 10. But I'm like, no, this is not a 9 out of 10. This is junk. And I don't know, like, I haven't watched every single one of these videos, but the general sentiment I get is that they would probably agree with that, where it's like, oh, actually, yeah, like all of this, like 400 million spent on whatever game and having it not do well, like, yeah, I agree. That is something to be pointed out. That's not really that, maybe there's something off. Maybe they're not doing something right, you know? And I think gamers, they don't know what it is. They might blame it on corporate shareholders or what have you, and maybe there's a degree to which that's right. I think there's more to it, and there's something deeper. But the general sentiment, though, I would say, subconsciously, unconsciously, or however you want to put it, the intuition is correct. But it makes me wonder how many more videos of this you would see, how much more insights you could get if every gamer that played games, because I know this, I don't know much about him personally. I know that he's not a developer, but I know he plays a lot of games. And it makes me wonder, he's sort of on the right track, but if he knew more, if he knew like the unconscious stuff, the invisible stuff that were in the games that he liked, that aren't in the games now, you know, just imagine the amount more insight you could get from videos like this. Just imagine the amount of more wisdom and insight you could get. Because that's the thing, is that a lot of them will scrape the surface and they'll identify the problem, but not necessarily get to the root cause. Sometimes they do, but a lot of the time it's just kind of complaining, which, you know, has a purpose, but it doesn't get to solving it, of like, what is the underlying thing and how do you actually solve that problem? And I would say, because part of the reason I've started to care a lot more about this stuff is that the invisible ethos, the stuff that goes into making Gabby look the way she does now, and the character of the designer and all this stuff, that's the stuff that people 20 years ago understood and were putting into practice that we didn't appreciate at the time. And I think we're starting to reappreciate now. Because what you will notice about a lot of these channels is that they are all doing what I'm doing, in the sense that they are playing old games, you'll notice. Because I've been doing this for years, and these guys have all said, oh, you know what, I'm not even buying new games anymore. I'm buying games from 2005. And I've been doing that since 2000. I never stopped doing that. But a lot of gamers now are doing this now. And it makes me wonder if maybe they subconsciously know, but they don't know that they know. You know what I mean? Like, they know, they recognize the ethos, the character of the designer, and they recognize how it was superior in the past, but they don't know why. They just know that it was better. So I don't know, it just makes me think, if they understood, if everybody, if the general public generally had their awareness raised, how, you know, maybe their insights and the way they chose games to buy and their experience as a customer would be better. That's sort of my game theory. That's my hypothesis. Because I imagine, for me, it's super interesting because I have to study all of it and put it into practice. But if I had to imagine what it was like, having not made Gabby's model, having not tried to do this UI design, having not read these old magazines, if I had to imagine what it was like to not know any of that, and to be in a landscape where you just see everything getting worse, it would feel, if I had to just imagine how it would feel very bewildering. And you would feel like Ryan Gosling in that, hold on. Right, that literally me, what was the... I would literally feel like this if I didn't know all the other invisible stuff happening, and I was looking at games getting, like, this would be literally me. And maybe this is sort of how everyone feels about it. So, I don't know, you know that old saying, knowledge is power? It makes me wonder if you took a group of these Ryan Goslings, if you took the audience of Ryan Goslings that are just watching this all happen, they're watching the fall of Rome, so to speak, and they don't know what to do or why it's happening. What if they did know why it was happening? What if they did understand it? What if they could see the invisible artistry? What if they were aware of it and they knew how to point it out and how to critique it? If you equip them with that stuff, I think you become a lot less like Ryan Gosling in this, you know, you become less, the 1,000-yard stare disappears and you get some hope again, right? I think that's part of I think there's a thing to that where if, you know, the more you would learn about it, the less over it would feel, because then you would know how to spot the good stuff and where to look. Because I think the main issue, the reason why you would get this sort of PTSD response looking at Steam at the moment or whatever, is that you're looking in the wrong place. Because the place that you have to look is usually whatever's just the most popular. And if it's the front page or the shelf at EB Games or whatever, because it's not curated very well, you are only going to see mostly the bad stuff. But if you knew where to look, if you had a more discerning eye, if you knew what to look for, because I think that's the problem, I think, is that the game is just, there is good stuff, they just don't know where to look, and it feels like it's over. And I know how that feels. It's just, for me, I have a lot more hope because I understand what's going on beneath it. So I don't know. There's just some thoughts I wanted to put out there about, you know, what if more people did know about this? And you could better curate, like, the antidote. I'll take this to the logical conclusion of what this would look like if everyone understood what was going on. Not even just just the gamer, not even just the developers, because I think there's a lot of developers that probably don't get it. But imagine if the consumer, or I hate that word, I'm going to use the word I do prefer, the customer. Imagine if the customer knew this. Now I'm just trying to find this website of someone who I think gets it. At least a lot more than most who I do see, of a gamer who gets it. So this is Ross's website from Accursed Farms, and I was looking at this a few months ago with the Stop Killing Games thing, but I looked a bit more, and he has this list, Ross's game list. I don't know if the website's going to load, but I think this sort of thing is this is the sort of stuff I would prefer reading over gaming journalism. Because Ross is like, I don't know if he would call himself a journalist, but he is most definitely a curator. And I think curation is the future of this stuff. Because I think in the general landscape, good games are still getting made, but I think it's just there are so many more average and bad ones getting made that it drowns out the good ones, even though the same amount of good ones get made every year. And if you actually look at the statistics, it backs that up. I don't know exactly where I read this from. It might have been on Steam DB or something. But about, in terms of revenue, only like 200-ish, I don't know if this is exactly right, but about 200 games every year make over $1 million or something like that. I don't know if that's the exact number, but the point is that every year it's the same amount. Everyone's always stressing out about how every year more games on Steam are getting released, where it's like, oh, this year 40,000 games came out, and the next year 50,000 games came out. Oh, it's impossible to compete. It's so over. What are we going to do? And, I've stressed out a little bit about this, where it's like, how do I compete in such an oversaturated environment? And then you realize it's actually not that oversaturated if you curate it. Because only the same amount of games, even if you have 40 or 50 or 60,000 per year coming out, still every year it's about a few hundred every year that actually get noticed and are like make more than $1 million or something like that. And I think people like Ross know how to pick these out. And that's how you get a game list like this, where it's picking through the sewage to find the gems. So it makes you think, right? Imagine if, because then all of a sudden, if everyone kind of leaned more into this, where instead of looking at the news or whatever, we had our own little circle of websites, and you would just have your own personal circle of like 5 websites you followed that each had a game list on it, and you look at, oh, well, I want to play a new game. Well, what does Ross recommend? What does Ross like? Or what's Raymond playing? Or what's whoever? And if that was your source instead of being bombarded with slop on the PlayStation Store, like instead of looking at the PlayStation Store homepage, and if instead you looked at the game list, dude, you would have such a better time. You wouldn't be... Because I'm saying this because I was literally at JB Hi-Fi the other day just to look, because I'm like, maybe it's gotten better. But I look at the shelf and I actually get depressed. Like I feel angry and sad. I feel like Ryan Gosling, the 1,000-yard stare, because I'm picking up every box, I'm reading the front cover, I'm looking at the back cover, and I'm just like, is this it? Like, is this the best they got? And I'm not saying that I could do better. I'm not trying to say that I'm like better than all these people. I mean, I'm not on the shelf yet, so I'm not saying that I'm above this. But I am, as a customer, it does upset me. And it's like, man, I want better pickings. But half of this stuff, I mean, some of this is good, but a lot of this stuff I just haven't heard of, or it just doesn't really appeal to me. But you look at something like this, and each one of these looks so interesting. It's like, whoa, what's this? Well, that's that one. And it's like, maybe this is the future isn't creation, like the AI bros might think, where it's like, you just got to create as much as possible. Maybe the future is in curation, where I think these people are going to be super important in the next 5 years, of the gatekeepers, keeping the slop out of the water supply, where they carefully curate the pickings that are good. It's like the hunting and gathering instincts. These guys will go through hunting and gathering through the store so that you don't have to, and they bring back the goods. Humans, I mean, I don't know. Humans have instinctually done that for generations, and now I think digitally it's gonna be where it's at. Because even I'm just scrolling through these, and not all of these even look like my kind of genre, but a lot of these just look kind of fascinating. And you notice how it's just using screenshots too, and not the game cover, which is an interesting choice. Because a lot of game screenshots on new games now don't look that interesting because they aren't directed very well, and they rely too much on the 4K for the appeal, which doesn't work on a thumbnail this size. You can't get the 4K is not going to impress you when you shrink it down to 200 pixels wide. But you'll notice that the games with the best art direction hold up if you were to look at them in a list like this with these screenshots. Even you can sort of see here how the colors are a bit dull, but you just know that on a 4K screen this would look good. But on here, it looks kind of boring compared to the rest of these. So anyway, I don't know. What do you guys make of that as gamers or as developers? I don't know. I'm not sure what the mix is in my chat between developers and customers. Mad Goose says, I don't know why, but the way a Curse Farms shows them off makes them feel not slup. Yeah, well, that's also because he makes, like, videos on... I don't know if he does them on each one, but I know that, well, he catalogs them, and you can leave comments on each one. But I know that on... I think there's the game list, and then he has a series called the Game Dungeon, where he actually does videos about each one. So lately, he's been kind of held up with Stop Killing Games. I'm glad he's still going with this, by the way. I was really, I don't know, I usually don't care much about current events, but this whole situation I thought was interesting. But he said, where was it? Ross's Game Dungeon. I started watching through these videos, and the thing is that's so brilliant, and this is what I love about it, is that the Game Dungeon series is old, okay? Like, the first episode is from 11 years ago, and it still holds up. Like, you could still, like, it doesn't age, okay? This is still going to be just as useful now than it was when it was published. Because it's like, if you want to find like a good curation of games to buy, it's like, well, it doesn't really matter that the video reviewing it is 11 years old. The merits in the review are gonna still hold up just as well, right? So, you know, some of these might be a bit too retro for your taste. I know for me, like, I might not go back this far, but he's got a lot of games he's reviewed in this. And so there's the game list, and then this is the Game Dungeon, Ross's Game Dungeon, where he like does dedicated videos on each one. And it's just, I feel like there is something about the act of making a video, especially a 30-minute long video, about a game, because it says something about the game. I think if a game was forgettable and bad, it wouldn't motivate someone to make a 37-minute video on it. So that kind of gives you social proof, doesn't it? Where you look at, oh, I want something new to play, and even this looks kind of interesting. And it's like, well, I know already that this will be a good option because some guy was bothered to make a 37-minute video about it. So that gives you something. Whereas on the Steam homepage, there's no social proof besides the amount of reviews and whether it's positive or negative. But, you know, a lot of those reviews might have been from people that played it for 2 minutes and were like, oh, yeah, this... and they put, like, a meme in the review with, like, oh, here's my review. Oh, positive rating. Here's a cat. Pat him on the head. And they do the ASCII cat or something. But that's, you know, a lot of Steam reviews can be like that. And it doesn't necessarily give you an insight. And then you look at stuff like this, right? And you know that this one probably has to be special because the video on this one is like an hour. So, all right, well, Ross must have really had a lot to say about this. That's a lot of social proof in terms of, like, not just the amount of time you spent talking about it, but then you can look at the, you know, what other people are also saying. And it's hard to quantify in numbers, just numbers alone, but it does give you like a sense that this game created this around it. Like, you've got the game itself, and something about the merits of the game created something, an impression on Ross, which then created an hour video, which then created 2,000 comments, which each say probably, I don't know, let's read what some of these say. I think they're just kind of quoting the bits from the video. But, you know, there's like a cascading set of events going on with this, which start with the game. Whereas you look at journalists like IGN or something, I feel like whatever is going on there is not this. I don't know what it is. Maybe there's like, you know, because there's always like paid promotion and stuff. There's a lot of that going on. But the stuff that isn't that's going on, it's not this. Something special is going on with this it's lacking in these other places that I can't quite put my finger on. But anyway, those are just my thoughts on it. So I don't know, maybe when my website's done, I could have my own game list, but it'll probably only be like 5 games. But yeah, Ross is, you know, he's got heaps. He's got like 92 videos on his Game Dungeon. That's incredible. And that, you know, that would be one of my aspirations. When Project Feline is said and done, I want it to be that good that it would end up on something like Ross's Game Dungeon or his game list. Like, that would be such an honor. I don't care if it gets like a 9 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10 on IGN. If it ends up on someone's list, or in someone's game dungeon, dude, that would be like mission accomplished. You know, that'd be so cool. Some guy says, it sounds like my anime list fulfills what you want. Oh, I have heard of that website. Yeah, it's just because I don't watch a lot of anime, so I don't know if that does games as well or just anime. But yeah, something like that. But it has to be from people that I like, of people who think like me. I think that has to be, I can't just look at anyone's list. It has to be people who I can kind of relate to and like, oh, I think this way as well. Me too, sort of thing. And I think Ross has a bit of that. I like the way he describes stuff and his criticisms of things. Because he also, in that first episode of Game Dungeon with that 2D arcade-looking game, he points out lots of similar things about the art direction. And he says something really funny about how if you're snobbish enough to dismiss this just because it's pixel art, then you're missing out. And it's actually really well directed if you know where to look. And it's like, man, that's the kind of... Yeah, like what he said. Yeah. And that's the sort of, that kind of insight is cool. So any kind of reviewer that has those sorts of insights is sort of like where I would want to be looking. You know, not just some random paid IGN reviewer that is just sort of, I don't know. You know, I don't know. Like, it feels like from the little of it I have read, they don't have that same, I don't know. They all feel interchangeable. It's like, oh, they're just all writing for the IGN writing stuff or something like that. Whereas with Ross, it feels like, oh, this is Ross. Like, this isn't just what a company thinks. This is what Ross, an individual who has his own temperament, his own character, his own ethos. This is what Ross's ethos thinks of this. And I think there's I don't know, something to that. Mad Goose says, I know exactly what you mean. Good that you can do that form of creation. Lame name. We love you for it. I just make music and I draw a little too. Still valid form of creation. Oh, hold on, I'm missing some context here from these messages. Okay, yeah, so we got some illustrators in chat, some concept artists. Cool. Okay, well, you guys will probably understand this more than maybe programmers might, because I have noticed that artists, they have a more aesthetic, because a lot of it is aesthetic. It's a sort of aesthetic sense. I found that the programmers I've met tend to focus a little too much on the engineering. I mean, I guess they're supposed to. They're the programmers, right? So it's good that they do that. But there's the bigger picture stuff, which I think artists have a little better time observing. But yeah. I'll have to check out my anime list and have a look there, because that does sound like something up that alley. Cosmic says the character and temperament of the reviewer also affect how relatable their reviews be. Yeah, exactly. And I think the thing that I don't like about websites where it's just, you know, it's a publication that has multiple writers, is that I can't distinguish between each of them, and I can't get a firm grip on the character, because it is, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of other examples besides IGN. I feel like I'm picking on them a little too much. That's just the one I have heard of, though, like IGN, because it doesn't feel like a person. It's like, oh yeah, my good friend IGN. Like, it doesn't feel like a person, you know? But you think about Ross, and it's like, oh, well, I understand that this isn't some nebulous organization. Like, this is a guy that has firm opinions based on his character, and I know that that's probably not going to change. Or like, you know, who's that other guy? Angry Joe, or I'm trying to think of other examples. All the names are escaping me right now. Or like, you know, Angry Video Game Nerd on JonTron. These are probably super old examples. I haven't really checked on it in a while. I'm thinking of old YouTube here. But, you know, that sort of stuff where when you watch each of their videos, you get to know them and it's a consistent character. But you go read, I don't know, you look up news, gaming news. There's one I've seen called like Sports Keeta or like Game Rant or PC. Like, just from the name, I can't tell. From the web design, I can't tell like the character of the designer. You can tell instantly from Ross's page. You can tell what he's like just from the page. But with all of these, I can't tell. Like, I don't know, what's this? Borderlands 4. I didn't even know this was a thing until just now. And it's got, yeah, a tiny little thing of the author here, but I don't know anything about Daniel Morris. I don't know who, like, because all of their articles, no matter who's writing it, like this other one in the sidebar is going to be written by someone else, but they all have like the same what is it called? Editorial style, and the same, like, it feels like, because visually, I don't read this part. I just skip straight from the headline to here, right? Because this text is bigger. I'm not even thinking about who's writing it. I just know that I'm on Game Rant. And it feels like Game Rant, but who is Game Rant? I don't know. Like, it's a publication. It doesn't feel like a person's opinion. Even though they probably do write opinion pieces and stuff. But it just, I don't know, you get what I mean? Like, this is a very different feeling from watching one of Ross's videos. And then you look at, like, PC Gamer or something, and it's like, it just feels like it just feels a bit too neutral and a bit just like news. But I want to know, like, you know, well, what does Ross think of this? Or insert person's name who you know, whose personality you're familiar with. Because that will kind of, it does bias the news, and I think that's kind of the point. I think the character should influence their opinion of it, and you should sort of be wanting to look out for people that think like you do. Like, even this, like, Kotaku, all of this just feels kind of, even between each website, it feels the same. Like, here's another article on Borderlands 4. We just saw one of these on the other webs, and the web layout is the exact same. Like, I can't tell the difference between, what was it? Game Rant and Kotaku. It just feels like the same. You know, like, that's why I don't read it personally. It's because I feel like I don't need to know most of this anyway. Like, I don't care about Borderlands 4. I don't care about any of these. And, you know, I just, like, if a game comes along that I hear about, like, that's probably how I would find a game. Either one of my real life friends tells me about it, or some creator whose personality I'm familiar with that thinks like me, that I like, they will then recommend something. Like, that's how I found all these magazines, by the way, all the graphic design. There was some designer who I've been watching for years, he's like a comedian, but he has a graphic design background, and he does all these like super edited transitions in his sketches. And he's very well read, and he on one of his streams, he was talking about these books he recommends, and that's how I found out about them. And I'm like, oh, well, I like the way this guy critiques design, I like how he thinks, and I like his work. And he's telling me that, you know, I got to look at people from the 80s and 90s and the 70s. Well, I'll go check that out and see what I make of it, you know? And that's sort of how the cycle, that's how the next link in the chain happens. But yeah, Mad Goose says it's always sanitized and devoid of personality. I honestly don't get how it's supposed to appeal to gamers. That's sort of, yeah, that's what I think too. Because personally, I don't, like, you know, my friends play games and none of them read this. Like, they read Reddit. They don't read the actual, like, they don't go to the actual news websites. So I don't even know, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know who is reading it. Because I know that my friends aren't reading it, and I know that I'm not reading it. And maybe there's this nebulous modern audience community out there that is reading it. I don't know, but I can't imagine it. That's the thing. Maybe, are you guys reading it? I don't know. Maybe some of you are reading it, but I know that I'm not. And Mad Goose is particularly, he's not reading it. Keo doesn't even read Reddit. Yeah, me too. Yeah. So, you know, it's like, you know, so it's like, who is? I don't know. Me personally, I would rather just read Ross's game list. That's what I would do. I think of Scott the Was says, oh yeah, I remember Scott the Was. Man, I haven't watched one of his videos in a long time, but I do remember he had this really good video on box art that I loved, where he's talking about not the actual artwork, but the standardization. This stuff is so incredible. Like, I've always been obsessed with this, and nobody seems to care except me and Scott the Was, apparently. But I remember he like stuff like this. You know how they have like the standard template where they've got like the banner at the top and the copy on the back. Like he had this whole video about just this. And I was like, oh man, finally, he's just like me, for real. So that was like really cool. So yeah, that's the sort of person I would want to listen to, right? You know, people like that. Anyway, I've rambled a bit too much about gaming news and the sort, but you know, it'd be really cool. You know, imagine then you've got someone like Scott the Woz, or someone like Ross, or someone like with that other channel we were looking at. Could you imagine how powerful they would be if they knew, like, if they were like read on design and all that, and if they knew all this stuff? Like, because the thing is, they do know it. They do know it instinctively, but they don't know that they know that. Imagine if they did know that they knew it and they could articulate it beyond just, it isn't, they don't make them like they used to. Imagine if they could, each of them could explain why it's not the way it was. That would be really cool. And that's kind of what I want to, part of my goals to my devlog as I continue working through it. Maybe I've done that unconsciously through my previous episodes, but especially in this one I've got about Gabby. I want people to be able to watch it that also will watch these sorts of things and see the invisible insights in it and go, oh. And maybe, like, you might learn why if you play Guilty Gear. Because I don't play Guilty Gear, but some of you that do, you might start to understand why you like it. If, you know, because they don't, the GDC talk is more about the technicals. So I wanted to have a bit of that in there, but also talk about the spirit, the character of the designer, the ethos that's there as well, that I think needs more attention. So, yeah. I think my favorite game case would be the OG Xbox. Yeah, me too, for sure. But anyway, we are getting close to midday here in Australia, so I do have to get going. I need to eat, and then I'm gonna probably spend the rest of the afternoon just working on the script, on the second half of it here. But yeah, so that's sort of the world I'm envisioning. This is sort of what it's all for. So that I know this devlog probably looks, it's maybe too much effort. But what I'm hoping is maybe one of these guys that does these sorts of channels might watch it and they start asking these sorts of questions about what they're consuming. And maybe we start seeing better videos about the games industry, stuff like that. I don't know, that'd be cool. Whether it happens or not, I don't know, but that's, I think there's, you gotta do more than just explain the technicals. You gotta try to help people see that, the ethos. I think that's, because if every developer knew that too, and every consumer, we'd be in a very interesting world, I think. So that's it. That's pretty much all there is to it. So thanks so much for hanging out for another dev stream. Yeah, you can see that this paragraph is too wordy. So I'm going to be working on more on this later. So thanks for hanging out for another stream. I hope you guys learned something. Hope you, maybe throughout the week, I don't know how often you guys go to the store. Go look at I don't know what you guys have in America, Best Buy, or what's the GameStop? That's what you guys have over there. Just go and look at all the boxes. Just have a look at it. Try to find like an old game store and look at pre-owned games from back then and start to make it, I don't know, like I've got my observations that I've shared. Try to make your own ones too and just think about it. Look at the boxes, turn them over, read them, think about it and go, what changed? What used to be better about this? And even if you're not a developer and you don't think you will apply this, I think as a customer, you are going to be better off knowing it. I think when you start thinking this way, you're going to be a lot better at picking good stuff. Maybe you'd be then, I don't know, maybe if you do know that stuff, you could then run your own game list maybe, and all the stuff you pick is really good, and maybe it gets popular, and maybe you could have your own game dungeon, which would be, I don't know, that'd be, hey, and if you did that, maybe I would watch it. That'd be pretty cool. So anyway, I'm just thinking of so many future possibilities right now, but that'd be an awesome world, you know? GameStop has become a Funko Pop store. Oh man, that's depressing. The Australian counterpart actually has too, now that I think about it. The game shelves keep getting smaller and the merch shelves keep getting bigger. So yeah, that's why you gotta go hunt down the old pre-owned stores. That's where you'll find the good stuff. Game stopped. Nice one. But yeah. Gotta love how the convenience of digital shopping killed the specialized stores. Well, that's why you gotta go out in person. You gotta go to the physical store. That's what I do. I don't really shop digitally that much anymore. I'm going to physical stores. And, you know, I don't always pick out something. It's actually, a lot of the time it is cheaper than buying digital, because a lot of it's just old pre-owned stuff that nobody wants. But the, you know, gotta keep them in business. Could you support your local mom and pop shop, as they say. And just, you know, just browse and look carefully. That's what that would be my homework for all of you this week. But anyway, well, that whole topic of like physical, digital, that's a whole other rabbit hole. I could talk about that for hours, but I do have to get going. So I think I'll cut the stream short this time. And, well, I think we'll call it there. So thanks for hanging out. I hope you learned something. I hope you found this interesting. And thank you once again for being so patient with this episode. I do hope that when this is finished and when it's there, you guys are going to learn a lot. It's going to be real entertaining. So I appreciate that. The patrons and channel members will get to watch it first. You will get first dibs on it. So if you want to support the channel so that, you know, you can help pay for my time that's gone into making this, I'd appreciate that a lot. And you'll be able to get first viewing of the episode when it's ready. So anyway, I'll get back to it. I'll see you guys next week, and we'll see how it comes along then. I'll probably have a lot of the voiceover done by then, and maybe I'll try out some more. We'll see how much more I can learn about design as well. So anyway, I'll see you guys next week. Take care of yourselves.